We all have those moments when you look back at the past, perhaps in your childhood or some other distant memory, and realize things aren't the same anymore. They've changed. Maybe you look back at yourself. I used to be a lot more shy. I was naive back then. I was a lot more innocent. And you realize that you've changed too. Change is such a constant and everlasting thing that before moments like those, we sometimes forget that it's even happening. But there are times when we anticipate change, expect it to upturn our worlds. For over 2.2 million high school seniors, college is the next stage of their lives, and many are ready to embrace the changes it will bring.
I think I'm excited,
Yeah, like these days, like we only have 3 weeks left of high school, but like I'm actually just really excited to leave and like go to college already.
I'm not really nervous right now. I feel like I will get like a little nervous when the time comes closer to me actually like moving in and like starting that.
Never really been away from my friends. Like I've lived in the Seattle area at least for a good, I don't know how long, 10 years now, almost 10 years.
I feel like I want to expand beyond Redmond. I've lived here my entire life and I feel kind of cooped up sometimes in here. Like I know everyone here, I know all the things that there is to do. I kind of want to like explore.
Everyone says once you get into college, you're a truer version of yourself, you're a fuller version of yourself. And I do think if I'll be adding on to myself, that's true.
But I feel pretty excited because I get to meet like a lot of new people. I get to move far away from home.
I'll be surrounded by new people. I'll be surrounded by new ideas. I might have different perspectives.
Yeah, I'll be a completely different person.
I'm ready to leave. It's time.
It makes sense that so many people are ready to embrace the changes that college brings. It's an escape from the same old routine they've lived for the past 18 years. It's significant enough that people who are already in college, who have experienced a change, can recall their excitement with ease.
I was really excited, get started with the college experience. I was really excited for football season and to be, going somewhere where you have more of that independence.
By the end of the summer, I was very ready to go.
I was excited. I was anxious, but I think I was more.
But of course, expectations are sometimes different than reality.
I think I was more confident then than I am now.
Especially with a change as big as this. How could you ever know what to expect if you stayed in one place all your life? If you've only known a tiny sliver of the world, and then you leave it all behind?
Back then, I thought that I would come to college within a semester or two. I'd figured out what it is that I want to study, and the rest of it would be, just go. A year in, I still don't know.
I didn't think I would change as much as I have. I didn't think there was so much more to learn about the world, and the classes I've taken have really expanded how I see everything, literally everything. It's been a really amazing experience to do that, and one I wasn't necessarily ready for. How do I identify, like, where do I feel like I belong? Who do I want to be around? That all those things have changed a lot since I got to college.
And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? There's so many factors, the people you'll meet, the place you're going, your prior experiences, and there's no way to tell how you'll change, only that you will change.
I thought that the kinds of experiences I would have and the experiences that I would hear from other people would open my eyes to new possibilities and help me mature.
And do you feel like that didn't really happen your first year?
It did. Oh, it definitely did, but not in a positive way.
And I would sit in my room and I'd be like reading for the class and just like reading even just the introduction to some of these papers and being like, how does this happen in the world? Like what? And when you learn that stuff, like you just have to completely change your mental map, basically. Like, you have to be like, okay, this truth also exists. How do I integrate this into how I see the world, how I live?
Because I had been, around some of the more rundown areas of the Puget Sound region. I've been in Southside Tacoma, Federal Way, Kent, and Fife. And then I got to Chicago. I drove through Southside Chicago. I drove through East Chicago. I drove through Gary, Indiana. I drove through Michigan City, Indiana. I've driven through a lot of Detroit, and I've seen these places where, every other house is abandoned and falling apart. Everyone's out in the streets. You drive down these neighborhoods where every single shop has bars on the windows, and it's a liquor store and a payday loan place on every block. And you're like, this, is how a lot of people in America live. So that was a super good experience for me, because it kind of opened my eyes, and it got me involved with some service stuff in Notre Dame too. Because I think living in a place like Redmond, you can forget how bad a lot of the United States has it.
We talked about other college students too. Each one seemed to relate to the unexpectedness of the change they faced. The thing about change, a lot of them said, is that once it happens, nothing is ever the same again. The interesting thing is that in the process of rethinking who they are, these students reflect on their memories differently. Something funny at the time seems shallow in retrospect. They remember their friendships differently.
I've realized a lot about myself in this last year that have changed the way I look at the people I used to know. I've realized that the depth of relationships I used to have are not what I thought they were and not what I wanted.
I'm kind of realizing now I have a lot of anxious thoughts and things that I've just been internalizing for a long time. And that's making me look at like things I did in high school a lot differently.
It's interesting coming back here because it feels a little bit foreign to me, which is weird, because I'm not going to introduce myself and tell you guys that I'm a Hoosier and that I'm from Indiana now, but I do feel, like kind of like a fresh off the boat as soon as I got back here, which was a little bit interesting.
Somehow, the new perspectives I've gained in college have made me realize that I didn't know what I was going to come home to. At the end of senior year, right, and during summer, I thought I would really miss the people here. The truth is that when I got to Pomona, I never once felt homesick.
Change in this way is inevitable, so these students are left with no choice but to embrace it. Especially in college, where there's no going back to the way things were. College is the transition between adolescence and adulthood, one where they're exposed to all the possibilities that adulthood and the world have to offer, but at the same time, maintain aspects of the naivety from childhood, a naivety they must eventually get rid of through personal growth. And in the end, growth is growth. The knowledge they gain from a changed environment becomes part of their identity, and it's hard to choose to discard the knowledge that they've gained.
I think, if anything, the change I've experienced has been bittersweet for me, in that, I'm a new person, and that's kind of rough to deal with, but the other side of that is I'm a new person, and I'm better than I was before.
If you could go back to the way things were before you had to deal with all of this crap
Right.
and figuring stuff out, would you do it?
No. I think
Would you be happier?
I wish that my first year hadn't played out the way it did, but I don't think that I would have given it up to be like how I used to be.
There's ups and downs about growing up. There's, everything is a prelude to something else. You finish one thing, you move on to the other. And, as much as you miss it, you can't go back in time. It's just important to learn from what you did and, to keep moving forward. And so, I might have regrets about a certain change, but ultimately you either learn to live with it or you try to change it again. And just going forward, I just try to learn from everything that I've done in the past and set myself up to be the best person that I can be.
Like, I've been back home, 4 times now in the last year, and I'm still processing all of the ways that I see the world around me differently now. And I still don't know if this kind of change is temporary, or if I've actually changed in a permanent way. I don't necessarily know why that is, but I just can't see myself going back.
But even as these college students return to the sanctuary of Redmond, they see their hometown through different eyes. This change in perspective is mostly due to their personal growth, brought about by the rapid overhaul of their environment. But at the same time, the city has been changing, slowly but surely. While it is easy to see what is different in the college students' lives, the evolution of Redmond is harder to identify. But if these students were transported to Redmond 30 or 40 years ago, the city would be nigh unrecognizable.
What was Redmond like when you first came here?
Terrific. There was one traffic light.
Much more quiet.
I think the population was just about 35, maybe to 40,000.
So the lifestyle, I think, was much simpler when I was growing up.
When I first got here, it still had a little bit of a country feel. It was still had we had a horse mentality.
That image of a sleepy rural town is foreign to both me and other young residents of Redmond. It simply doesn't exist anymore. So what happened?
Microsoft is responsible for a great deal of that.
Microsoft moved to Redmond in 1985, 34 years ago. The tech company brought jobs, immigrants, and congestion with it. Throughout my childhood, Microsoft has been an understated but fundamental part of the city. I feel like I should have realized sooner just how big of an impact the company had on my city.
That's had an impact on the entire city and brought other big businesses in, and there've been, I think it's a mixed blessing.
But the one thing is that we are growing so fast, and how do we keep up with that and keep that small town feel?
Homes with this for sale sign would come up and come down within a week.
I come to school and realize that the building I'm working in that was built in 2003 or 2004, 2005, within 5 years was undersized in literally 5 years.
I think of Redmond as kind of a teenager, where we're not a small town anymore, and we're not a big city yet, but we're kind of in that middle place.
She says it well. Redmond is like a teenager that's experiencing growing pains, figuring out who they are. But even if in the short term people focus on the downsides, there are positives to this time of transition as well.
I'm very excited about where Redmond is right now. We have a lot of opportunities that a lot of other regions of the country don't have. We have a thriving economy. We have an amazing project going with the Microsoft refresh. And we have light rail coming to Redmond in 2024 and 2023 with four new stations. And with all of that comes a lot of growth and change, but I think that we're in a very exciting time right now.
I noted in the local grade school that serves my area, there's 32 different dialects spoken, languages spoken in that school now. When my kids went to that school, which they did, the identical elementary school, I think there were 3.
The diversity in Redmond has changed dramatically for the better.
Once again, the difference in Redmond's demographics can be attributed to tech companies like Microsoft. Redmond's tech companies recruit employees from all over the world. And according to a recent Seattle Times article on diversity in the East Side, our foreign-born population is now at 40%, twice that of Seattle's. It's a big change.
There are so many different ethnicities and cultures here than there were. It was all just, middle of the road, white people, and now it's so diverse. And with that, we're getting exposed to all kinds of new festivals.
And you can't help but notice the diversity of those kids coming in, not only physical appearance, but in dress style, as they would come out of school to get on the bus or to be picked up.
Redmond and the area has become a much more diversity-rich place to live. And with all of that comes these amazing ideas and experiences from around the world that make what we have in Redmond and what we can continue to be in Redmond a much more interesting, culturally rich space that, I don't even know what if things will happen, but I feel really excited about those opportunities that we have now.
I just think of my neighbor across the street. She has many other talents, but one of the talents she has is she's a chef. and she's been dying to have somebody she really wants to learn how to cook Indian food, and her houses have gone for sale on both sides, for she really wants an Indian family to move in so she can learn how to cook Indian food.
Not everyone is so eager.
The normal housing purchase and paying cash even though they didn't live in the area, and then renting out houses. And he was real hostile as far as, all this foreign money's coming in and making things unreasonable for everybody else. And so he left and moved to Utah.
When I was running for office for council for the first time, and I wasn't part of the forum, but there was another forum going on, and I was listening to a candidate talk, and I remember these words rang in my head: those apartment dwellers.
And a lot of it is renters. Renters notoriously don't have the invested interest in maintaining a home because they're going to move at the end of the lease. They're going to go to another city. They're going to go to a bigger home, a smaller home. So what do they care? I hate to see it when I do see it. Like, another family from India is moving in, and one of my neighbors will say, and I'm going, well, they'll be friends with so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so who are from India or that part of the world. And she says, oh, I just want it to be American again. Well, this is America.
Fortunately for immigrants like our parents, these people are a small, albeit loud, minority. The city of Redmond and most of its residents are welcoming and open to working with these new developments.
I think that as a city, we have our comprehensive plan that is planned for this growth. And that has been great. And that comprehensive plan, those plans drive us for where we are with the density where we're putting them.
I think they've done a good job of creating a dense population, some open space, some parks, some hiking areas that are untouched within the area, and I think they've done a good job with that.
We take comfort in the familiar, but when asked, these Redmond residents were clear about how it's useless and harmful to try and resist change. You should strive to understand it and make it work for you.
But, change is inevitable.
This lifestyle, this atmosphere is not going to change. You need to change.
It kind of goes back to my idea that if you don't change, you're not learning, you're just going to grow old and stagnant and uninteresting. I think you got to take a little of the good, a little of the bad, and figure it out. But kind of the more you know, the easier it is to understand and support.
Our natural response to change is to resist it. I think that's just part of the process that people are going to do. If you tell me that I am going to a 7-period day and I have 10 less minutes to teach my class, I'm going to resist it. And then I'm going to change and figure out how to use the time I have.
Change is a painful thing, uncomfortable, unpredictable, and unavoidable. Whether we move across the country for college or stay in our hometown for many years, almost nothing stays the same. As our environment shifts and our pool of knowledge and experience grows, we go through our own revolutions and evolutions. We must adapt to our new realities. After all, change is the only way that we can grow as people, as a community, and as a society.